Imagine a world where peace is not just an option, but a norm. Imagine a place where every person can walk the streets without fear, where justice isn't just a word, but a lived reality for everyone. Imagine a world where conflict and crime are but distant memories. But should this remain only in our imagination?
Good day! We are Group 15, reporting live. Today, we're shedding light on one of the most critical issues, Sustainable Development Goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. But what exactly is Goal 16? As we dive deeper into the essence of Goal 16, it's crucial to highlight that promoting peaceful and inclusive societies isn't just a lofty idea. It's a fundamental human right. Everyone, regardless of their ethnicity, faith, or sexual orientation, deserves to live without fear of violence and discrimination. This goal calls for a transformative approach to governance, one that emphasizes not only the need for security, but also the importance of social cohesion. To give us all a clear understanding of what SDG 16 is all about, we would like to call on Ms. Moldy to share with us the main issues that relate to the goal and what would be aided with this goal.
Thank you, Ms. Comendador. Ongoing and emerging violent conflicts across the globe are significantly derailing the world's progress towards peace and achieving Goal 16. In recent years, we've seen an unsettling increase in violence and instability, derailing global efforts toward peace. Armed conflicts and lawlessness continue to pose significant threats to societies worldwide. For instance, the year 2022 witnessed an alarming rise in conflict-related civilian deaths, a staggering more than 50% increase. This marks the first time we've seen such spike in the adoption of Agenda 2030, with much of this devastation linked to the war in Ukraine. 2021 was a tragic year in terms of global safety, with 458,000 intentional homicides, the highest in 2 decades. The world saw a surge in violence. A heartbreaking statistic shows that 90% of these victims were men, shedding light on the urgent need for action in reducing violent crime. Equally concerning in the mass displacement crisis, by the end of 2022, over 108 million people were forcibly displaced, more than 2.5 times of the number from just a decade ago. These individuals are fleeing conflict, persecution, and violence in search of safety and hope. Human trafficking continues to be an unseen global epidemic. Between 2017 and 2020, nearly 200,000 victims were detected worldwide, but this number is likely just the tip of the iceberg. The majority of the victims remain undetected, trapped in cycles of exploitation and abuse. When it comes to political representation, young people are often left out of the decision-making process. With a global median age between just 20, it's startling to see that the average age of parliamentarians is 51. This underrepresentation of youth hinders fresh perspectives and limits the potential for inclusive policies.
Thank you, Ms. Moldy, for that insightful explanation. It's clear that SDG 16 is about much more than just ending conflicts. It's about creating a solid foundation where justice, peace, and a strong institution can thrive. Now, if these are the challenges we face, what are the concrete steps we need to take to overcome them? To guide us through the specific targets of SDG 16, we have Ms. Abad who will explain how this goal aims to transform our world. Ms. Abad, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Comendador. Goal 16 focuses on fostering peaceful and inclusive societies where justice is accessible to all and institutions operate with transparency and accountability. Achieving this ambitious goal requires hitting key targets. These include: First, SDG 16.1, significantly reduce all forms of violence and related death rates everywhere. This target focuses on lowering violence levels globally, including armed conflict, violent crime, and domestic abuse. Violence affects societies by disrupting peace, causing loss of life, and destabilizing communities. reducing violence means addressing its root causes from poverty to inequality. SDG 16.2 End abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence against and torture of children. This target aims to protect children from all forms of harm, including abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. Children are among the most vulnerable, and ending exploitation and abuse requires better enforcement of laws, awareness campaigns, and support services for victims. SDG 16.3 Promote the rule of law at the national and international levels and ensure equal access to justice for all. Strengthening the rule of law and ensuring that everyone has equal access to fair legal systems. A fair justice system is the backbone of peaceful societies. Promoting the rule of law ensures that all citizens, regardless of status, have equal rights and protection under the law. Next is SDG 16.4. By 2030, significantly reduce illicit financial and arms flows, strengthen the recovery of stolen assets, and combat organized crime. This target focuses on combating illegal financial activities and reducing the movement of illegal arms. Illicit financial flows and arms trafficking fuel violence and instability. Tackling these issues requires international cooperation, stronger regulation, and transparent financial systems. SDG 16.5 Substantially reduce corruption and bribery in all their forms. This target seeks to reduce corruption and bribery at all levels, from public to private sectors. Corruption weakens institutions and erodes trust in governance. By reducing bribery and corruption, we can build stronger, more accountable systems that benefit everyone. Next is SDG 16.6. Develop effective, accountable, and transparent institutions at all levels. This target focuses on ensuring that institutions are transparent, accountable, and effective in delivering services. Strong institutions are key to maintaining peace and justice. Governments must be open and accountable to the people they serve with clear mechanisms for citizens to participate. SDG 16.7 Ensure responsive, inclusive, participatory, and representative decision-making at all levels. This target promotes the involvement of all groups, including minorities, in decision-making processes. Inclusive decision-making ensures that everyone has a voice in shaping policies. A diverse range of perspectives leads to a more just and equitable outcomes. SDG 16.8 Broaden and strengthen the participation of developing countries in the institutions of global governance. This target ensures that developing countries have a greater role in international decision-making bodies. Global governance must reflect the voices of all nations, not just the most powerful. Giving developing countries a stronger voice ensures more balanced and fair international policies. Next is SDG 16.9. By 2030, provide legal identity for all, including birth registration. This target ensures that everyone has a legal identity, including birth registration, by 2030. A legal identity is fundamental to accessing rights and services. Without birth registration, individuals are invisible to the system, unable to access healthcare, education, or social protection. SDG 16.10 Ensure public access to information and protect fundamental freedoms, in line with the national laws and international agreements. This target promotes the freedom of information and protects fundamental rights. Access to information is critical for transparency and accountability. Protecting freedom of speech and the press ensures that citizens are informed and can hold their leaders accountable. Next is SDG 16.8 Strengthen national institutions to prevent violence and combat terrorism and crime, especially in developing countries. This target seeks to build capacity in national institutions to better prevent violence, terrorism, and crime. Developing countries often face weak institutional capacity to combat crime and terrorism. International cooperation and support can help build stronger institutions to maintain peace. Lastly, SDG 16.B Promote and enforce non-discriminatory laws and policies for sustainable development. This target ensures that laws and policies promote equality and non-discrimination to support sustainable development. Discriminatory practices hinder development. By promoting equal rights and enforcing non-discriminatory laws, we can build more just and equitable societies. These targets are not just aspirational, they are concrete steps to build the kind of world we all deserve. One where peace, justice, and equality are the norm, not the exception.
Thank you, Ms. Abad, for walking us through the targets of SDG 16. Now that we understand the SK goals, the question remains, how far have we come in achieving them? While we have made some progress toward peace, justice, and strong institutions. Significant challenges still persist, making the path forward complex and multifaceted. For instance, rising level of conflicts and violence in various regions continue to undermine efforts, while issues like corruption and equality threaten to derail progress. To provide us with an update on the current global landscape of SDG 16, let's turn to Ms. Parco, who will share the latest data and insights. Ms. Parco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Comendador. While significant efforts have been made toward achieving SDG 16, the path to peace, justice, and strong institutions remains complex. As you mentioned, alongside our successes, we face considerable challenges that threaten to impede our progress. Let's start with some encouraging news. Globally, we've seen positive steps in reducing violence in certain regions, with many countries strengthening their institutions and expanding access to legal services. Anti-corruption efforts are gaining momentum, and civil society is more engaged in governance than ever before. However, it is crucial to acknowledge that while some targets are within reach, others require urgent action to ensure that no one is left behind. First is the reduction in violence and related death rates related to Target 16.1. According to the Global Peace Index of 2023, global levels of violence have decreased slightly, with the average homicide rate falling from 6.1 per 100,000 people in 2020 to 5.9 per 100,000 in 2022. While challenges remain, certain countries have successfully implemented violence reduction programs, leading to significant decreases in homicide rates. Next is the end of abuse and violence against children, related to Target 16.2. The number of child trafficking victims detected worldwide increased to approximately 10,000 in 2020, but international efforts, including the Global Action to Prevent and Address Trafficking in Persons and the Smuggling of Migrants, have led to increased awareness and prevention initiatives. Efforts have helped protect an estimated 1.2 million children from exploitation since the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Next is the promotion of the rule of law and access to justice, related to Target 16.3. According to the UN's Global Report on Justice for Children, there has been a 15% increase in the number of countries reporting legal aid provisions for children between 2015 and 2020. Additionally, as of 2021, 57% of countries have established legal frameworks to ensure access to justice for all. This is a notable improvement compared to previous years. Next is reduction of corruption and bribery related to Target 16.5. The Corruption Perceptions Index, or CPI, of 2022 indicates that 28% of countries improved their CPI scores, reflecting progress in reducing corruption levels. Initiatives like the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, or the EITI, have resulted in over $1.4 trillion in government revenues being reported transparently since its inception. And lastly, for the legal identity for all, related to Target 16.9. By the end of 2020, approximately 90% of children under 5 years old globally had their births registered, up to 75% in 2015. Countries like India and Bangladesh have implemented successful birth registration campaigns, helping ensure legal identity for millions of children and improving access to essential services. Next, I will be discussing the various obstacles we face in our pursuit of peace, justice, and strong institutions. These challenges not only hinder our current efforts, but also impact the future stability and inclusiveness of societies worldwide. First is the rising violence and conflict. The escalation of armed conflicts, particularly in the regions like the Middle East and parts of Africa, has led to increased violence and instability. This not only results in loss of life, but also disrupts the delivery of essential services, making it difficult to promote peace and justice. Next is corruption and lack of accountability. High levels of corruption undermine trust in institutions and hinder efforts to promote transparency and accountability. According to the Corruption Percentage Index of 2022, many countries still face significant challenges in reducing corruption. Next is displacement and migration. As of 2022, over 108 million people were forcibly displaced due to conflict, violence, and persecution. As mentioned with the different issues related to the SDG, this displacement creates challenges in providing adequate legal protections and services to affected populations, making it difficult to achieve targets related to safety and justice for all. Next is inequality and exclusion. Systematic inequalities, whether based on gender, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, continue to limit access to justice and participation in governance. Vulnerable populations often face discrimination, which can hinder their ability to access legal resources and protection. Next is weak institutions. Many countries struggle with ineffective, unaccountable, and opaque institutions that fail to uphold the rule of law. Weak legal frameworks and lack of capacity in law enforcement can prevent the enforcement of laws and protection of rights. And lastly, limited access to information. In many regions, restrictions of freedom of expression and limited access to information hinder public awareness and accountability. Without the ability to access information, citizens are less equipped to advocate for their rights and hold governments accountable. So those are the progress and challenges of SDG 16. In conclusion, while we have made significant strides towards achieving SDG 16, the challenges we face are substantial and complex. Rising violence, corruption, inequality, and weak institutions threaten to undermine our progress and the very fabric of peaceful and just societies. Addressing these obstacles requires collective action, innovative solutions, and a commitment to inclusivity at all levels of governance. It's crucial that we work together, governments, civil society, and individuals, to confront these challenges head-on and ensure that we can achieve peace, justice, and strong institutions for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Parco, for that insightful overview of the current progress towards SDG 16. It's clear that while we have achieved significant milestones, there's still much work to be done to address the pressing challenges we face. Now, let's turn our focus to actions that we as citizens can take to support the targets of SDG 16. From advocating for justice and transparency to promoting peaceful community engagement, our contributions are vital.
How can we help achieve SDG 16? First, advocacy and awareness. Educate yourself and others about SDG 16 and its targets. Use social media platforms to raise awareness about issues related to peace, justice, and strong institutions in your community and globally. Second, participate in local governance. Attend town hall meetings or community forums to voice concerns and engage with local leaders. Advocate for policies that promote peace and justice. Third, volunteer with NGOs. Collaborate with non-governmental organizations that focus on human rights, legal aid, or community development. Volunteering your time and skills can have a significant impact on local efforts to promote justice and equality. Fourth, support victims of violence and abuse. Offer support to organizations that assist victims of violence, human trafficking, or discrimination. Donations, fundraising, or providing resources can help these organizations extend their reach and effectiveness. And lastly, promote inclusivity. Foster inclusive dialogues within your community that prioritize the voices of marginalized groups, including women, youth, and minorities. Encourage policies that protect their rights and promote their participation in decision-making processes.
As we conclude our explanation of Sustainable Development Goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institution, it's clear that achieving these targets requires the collective effort of all of us. We've seen the significant progress made and the challenges that still lie ahead, but we must remember that change begins at the grassroots level.
Each of us has the power to make a difference, whether through advocacy, community engagement, or simply spreading awareness.
By taking action, supporting one another, and holding our institutions accountable, we can create a world where peace, justice, and strong institutions are not just ideals, but realities for everyone.
Let's commit to being proactive citizens, advocating for our rights and the rights of others, and fostering inclusive societies where everyone can thrive. Together, we can pave the way for a brighter future.
Thank you for joining us today, and let's continue to work together towards achieving SDG 16.